Even though Gooseworx stated that episodes 5 and 6 would be evenly split between Jax and Ragatha, I'm convinced episode 5 will lean more towards Raggy, while episode 6 will focus more on Jax. In this video, we'll dive into not only all the leaks and spoilers tied to Ragatha in episode 5, but also every piece of news and teasers about the episode. Ragatha has long seemed like one of the kindest and most positive characters in the digital circus, yet, unfortunately, she spent 95% of the time in the shadows. Almost no one paid attention to her until episode 4, after which her personality sparked incredible interest among the audience. And given that the upcoming episode will focus on her, the anticipation of what will happen to Ragatha in episode 5 only grows stronger. Spoiler, you certainly don't expect it. We'll analyze her behavior, the events surrounding her, and of course, her role and the full revelation of all her secrets in episode 5. Initially, all the attention was directed at Pomni, even in episodes where other characters were supposed to take the spotlight. Episode 4 broke this trend, meaning episode 5 might very well open with a scene involving Ragatha and Gangle, as hinted in the previous episode. This may seem unrelated until you consider that episode 4 actually revealed the secret that episode 5 would center around sports. Most likely, after her words and actions in episode 4, we will witness Ragatha's deep remorse. After all, no matter what, she still wants to appear as a kind-hearted character. Episode 5 will gradually, through the lens of repentance, unveil the whole truth about Ragatha, who will have to earn forgiveness not only from Gangle.
Why are you even the boss anyway? I feel like I'm way more responsible than you.
A team works much better when we're all giving it 110% instead of, 5.
No offense, but you're kind of annoying when you have your happy mask.
But also from Zooble. Despite Zooble's willingness to help Ragatha, her memory of the disgraceful behavior that could have seriously endangered both of them still lingers.
I made like 5 or 6 of them.
Cool, that's 6 out of 300.
Ugh, you are such a grouch. Why are you always being a grunch?
Throughout all the previous episodes, it seemed like Ragatha had chosen Pomni as her best friend. She went out of her way to help Pomni settle in during the pilot episode, did everything she could to lift her spirits in episode 2, and continued her supportive behavior in episode 3.
This place is spooky. I wonder how hard Kane's gonna go with the scare factor.
I hope this adventure doesn't end up being another horrible nightmare.
Scared of the vacuum cleaner too?
Hey, be nice to her. She's had a rough couple of days.
But despite the positive start of episode 4, we finally learned what Ragatha truly thinks about Pomni.
Oh, she's flirting with the gummy guy, 'cause she'd rather be with an NPC than with us or something.
But even that isn't the main point here, is it? At some point, Ragatha and Pomni started feeling like a single unit, almost like a brand, and I would have bet anything that their relationship would only grow stronger over time. Of course, we haven't fully seen it fall apart yet, but the seed of doubt has already been planted in Pomni's mind, and there's no undoing that. Now, if there's someone I least expected to cause such a betrayal, it's Gangle.
Ragatha would like to help you out. Oh, Ragatha. I love her, but after a while it gets kinda hard to tell how genuine she's actually being.
And judging by Pomni's increasingly detached attitude toward Ragatha after this, it really makes you think about the cracks forming in their relationship. This leaves Ragatha with 3 characters in her circle who either don't fully trust her or hold some small grudge against her. A significant portion of episode 5 will likely focus on unpacking Ragatha's behavior, whether it's through her actions or words. We don't know for sure just yet. At some point, it might have seemed like Ragatha was actually the villain. I even made a video on that theory, but after some reflection, I realized the root of Ragatha's issues lies elsewhere entirely, and that will be the crux of episode 5. Remember this key takeaway: Ragatha is not the villain. Episode 2 serves as a sort of gold standard for understanding Ragatha's behavior. It gave us a glimpse into almost every aspect of how she handles different stressful situations. Plus, it featured one of the most mysterious scenes in the entire amazing digital circus universe. I spent a long time puzzling over its meaning, and now it ties back to the so-called leak we mentioned earlier in this video. Gooseworx teased on Twitter, people getting attached to this evil version of Ragatha is going to make episode 5 so much funnier. It's a cryptic statement, but it might refer to Ragatha's deceptive mental state. Episode 5 won't just be about some evil Ragatha, it's going to dive deeper into her character. We'll finally see that despite all her seemingly genuine kindness and positivity, Ragatha is the most mentally unstable character in the digital circus. This idea is backed up by hints from the pilot episode, particularly in one dorm hallway scene. At first, Ragatha behaves exactly as we've come to expect from her.
Even though we don't really need to sleep, it's sometimes nice to kind of take a break from everything and have a bit of a routine, you know? I'm sure there'll be one for... Oh, look, you already got one.
And then, chaos begins to unfold in her mind.
Crazy. And eventually you get to asking what the point of anything is, and you completely lose sight of who you are and why you're even alive, and when you reach your breaking point, something really terrible can happen.
Now we've gradually unraveled the part about Ragatha's mental state in episode 5. But let's not forget about that so-called leak, which becomes clearer once we dissect her mental state. We've come to understand that Ragatha will be deeply unsettled by her actions in episode 4. At the same time, she'll be doing everything she can to regain the trust of the other characters. Considering her special bond with Pomni, her top priority will be to hear the words spoken during one of the final scenes of episode 3.
Thanks for always being concerned about me. I feel like, through everything, I haven't really been appreciative enough about that.
That darker side of Ragatha serves as a reminder that within this character, two personalities are constantly at odds. One part of her genuinely wants to help, while the other is terrified of everything happening around her and does its best to hide it. This inner conflict will undoubtedly influence her actions in episode 5. As I've mentioned before, episode 5 is set to be sports-themed, and we've already dubbed it Digital Games. Pretty catchy, right? Even though, with a 99% probability, the entire episode will revolve around just one sport: baseball. There are two theories about Ragatha's role in the game. She could either be a coach or an umpire. That's what a referee is called in baseball, for those who didn't know. I have a feeling that the role of a coach will perfectly reveal Ragatha's personality, because only in such a situation will we truly see who she really is and how she reacts when something doesn't go her way. After all, any sports competition is filled with passion, and passion reveals a person's true face. To add more intrigue, Kane, inspired by the idea of motivation after a conversation with Gangle, might introduce some sort of prize fund that the characters would find very appealing. But remember what I said, Ragatha also needs to figure out and resolve all her issues with the other characters, and doing that during the game itself is nearly impossible. That's why practice sessions exist, where she could talk to each character one-on-one, and then we'll finally determine who Ragatha truly is: a kind-hearted character who can be trusted, an insecure woman hiding something, or perhaps just a regular hypocrite concealing something truly awful behind a mask of kindness. In any case, we'll need to wait for the new episode to know for sure. However, I feel that episode 4 was, strange as it sounds, a breath of fresh air for Ragatha, and her words to Jax confirm it.
Yo, Jax. I, hate you, but I don't want you to hate me. Is that weird?
You're drunk or something.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe she's not the most positive character, but she clearly enjoyed simply being herself rather than trying to please everyone. And I respect and value that. I once again, really hope that in episode 5, Ragatha will truly open up to everyone and show who she really is without any pretentious masks. Now it's time to dive into all the other leaks about the upcoming episode. The very first leak was an image showing a drawing from Gangle's notebook, where we learned who she considers her friends, Pomni and Zubul. Even then, it seemed odd that Ragatha, who is usually on Gangle's side, was not on this list. But judging by this drawing and Gangle's words, we can see that not everything is as straightforward in the digital circus as it might seem.
Oh, Ragatha. I love her, but after a while it gets kinda hard to tell how genuine she's actually being.
We understand that almost half of the first season of TADC has already passed, but we still haven't seen any hint of major events. And based on one of Goose's spoilers, we won't see that in episode 5 either. One user asked, which out of the next 5 episodes is the lightest in terms of mood? And are you also doing those short mini episodes that aren't that important to the plot? To which Goose replied, 5 is probably the lightest of all the episodes. One could say that it's the silly before the storm. And now, this is getting really interesting. Considering another mini spoiler, it's genuinely unsettling. Gooseworx confirmed that episode 5 cannot be considered a full-fledged Ragatha episode, just as episode 6 won't be solely about Jax. It turns out that both characters will be revealed to us in parallel across these 2 episodes. However, it's been said that episode 5 will be the last calm episode, meaning it will fully uncover all the characters' sins. Reflecting on our first spoiler, we realize that Ragatha apparently doesn't belong to the list of positive characters. Her behavior in episode 4 was only the beginning of the terrifying truth we'll learn about her.
You are such a grouch. Why are you always being a grunch? Oh, she's flirting with the gummy guy, 'cause she'd rather be with an NPC than with us or something. I wish someone would flirt with me.
Many fans were genuinely curious about what would happen to Ragatha after episode 4, how other characters would treat her, and everything else. However, one fan asked a more specific question: what will happen to her after the events of episode 5? The response Gooseworx gave raises many questions. For some reason, I'm convinced we won't see the familiar happiness from Ragatha anymore, and her line from episode 5 only reinforces this: not anymore. What this could mean remains the subject of debates and discussions, but I think I've managed to solve this mystery. Think back to Ragatha's behavior in the first 3 episodes. She's always cheerful and joyful, and these scenes only confirm it.
That's just one of Kane's little adventures. They're just something fun to do to, prevent us from going insane. Wow, sounds fun. What do you think, Pomni? Oh, this place is spooky. I wonder how hard Kane's gonna go with the scare factor.
She didn't even lose her optimism and love for life during the most critical moment, when she was on the verge of turning into an abstracted monster. Even in episode 4, although she was under the influence of the stupid sauce, it still wasn't depression or negativity. However, one scene stands out from the overall picture of the cheerful and happy Ragatha.
Really can't leave, and constantly chasing an unattainable goal will start driving you a bit crazy. And eventually you get to asking what the point of anything is, and you completely lose sight of who you are and why you're even alive, and when you reach your breaking point, something really terrible can happen.
And that very phrase, "not anymore," might signal that Ragatha has returned to her true mental state and is now tired of wearing masks. All she wants is to simply be herself. The phrase, "huh," isn't a hint at any horrifying or tragic events, but rather an acceptance of the fact that Ragatha hasn't been authentic for a long time. These changes are also hinted at in episode 4, which, though presented as a humorous piece, subtly lays the groundwork for a chain reaction that will lead to a complete shift in understanding Ragatha's character. While the behavior in episode 4 is driven by the stupid sauce and shouldn't be taken entirely seriously, this episode acts as an inhibitor of deeper changes to come. Although we won't delve deeply into Pomni's phrases or other out-of-context remarks, as the focus here is on Ragatha's evolution and the overarching narrative beyond just episode 5, it would be remiss not to discuss how Ragatha arrived at this point. While no official confirmation exists yet, most fans speculate that episode 5 will involve a stadium and a sports theme. In my earlier videos, I explored theories about Ragatha's role in the new adventure. Among them, the most compelling is that Ragatha will act as an umpire. Initially, everything might go well, but over time, her instructions may be ignored. This neglect could push Ragatha to retreat to the locker room, where she might break down in tears. At this moment, Pomni could approach her, ask what happened, and hear the profound, "not anymore." Of course, this is a brief summary, but the essence is clear. Now let's talk about the release date, because many people are trying to mislead you by literally saying that we will see episode 5 in February, but unfortunately, it's not true. Gooseworx revealed, animation hasn't even started on 5 yet, so there's no way. This isn't just sad, it's a downright brutal announcement. If we draw parallels between the timeline for the pilot and episode 2, and then episodes 3 and 4, which released on December 13th, and now episode 5, which hasn't even entered production yet, we can assume its release could take around 6 months. That means summer 2025. Alright, maybe we won't actually have to wait a full 6 months for the much anticipated sports-themed episode, but it's safe to say 2 months is also way too optimistic. For now, let's solve the mystery of episode 5's release date. This topic is currently blowing up on Reddit, and one user shared this theory. This means that the episode probably won't get released until April-May, 4 to 5 months, because that's usually how long animation takes for an episode. However, I'd be okay with that since it's presumably a sports episode, so releasing it during spring-summertime would be perfect. Another Redditor agreed, but suggested a slight adjustment to the timeline. Honestly, that makes sense. I'm happy to wait. I'm glad they are pacing themselves and not rushing. I think your May theory makes sense. It could even be March. Anyway, that gives us a lot of time to rewatch the episodes and watch more shows. and also watch and support other indie shows, especially those featured in GlitchX. Of course, not everyone was on board with this initial comments timeline. 4 months is actually quite long. On average, most indie studios take about 2 to 3 months. Unless they're starting to work on Gaslight District, we might get episode 5 by March. Now, here's my take on the situation. I'd have to say I agree most with Sprout Cat. Waiting until May, let alone summer, seems highly unlikely. The long gap between the pilot and episode 2 can be attributed to one key factor: the higher priority of murder drones at the time. While Glitch has publicly stated they don't care about view counts, which I think is only partly true, there's no denying that Glitch prioritizes its flagship projects. Back then, murder drones was their primary focus, so even though the Amazing Digital Circus performed phenomenally, it was still second in line. Now things are completely different. Not only is the Amazing Digital Circus their top priority, but its viewership numbers are absolutely skyrocketing compared to any other Glitch show during their respective releases, especially when you consider the somewhat murky status of Gaslight District, a project with an uncertain timeline or even an uncertain future. It's clear that waiting 6 months again is off the table. On top of that, Gooseworx now has access to significantly larger financial resources. This means they can hire more professionals to speed up production and post-processing for the next episode. When you factor in all of this, the predicted 3 to 4 month timeline no longer seems unreasonable. So we're likely looking at a release in March or April for the sports-themed episode. Considering no one wants to lose momentum or money, and the creators now have the budget to deliver high-quality work in a shorter time frame, late March to early April seems like a very realistic window. And as many Reddit users have pointed out, releasing a sports episode during the perfect spring weather would feel symbolic and well-timed. What do you think of my projected release date for episode 5? Well, that wraps up our video. I look forward to your feedback in the comments, and see you soon.